Hey guys, it's Robbo and welcome to what I'm hoping will be the first of many quick tips. And this week what I wanted to talk about was sound design for radio imaging. And next week I'll be starting on a project for an old client of mine, SPH Media in Singapore. In particular, I work for their two English-speaking stations, which is KISS 92 and 1FM. I do the imaging for them. And next week, I'll be starting on the 2025 imaging for KISS 92. They've got a few lineup changes and other things happening. So I'm sort of looking forward to getting into that. But what I like to try and do before big projects like that is sit down and come up with not the final sound design, not the actual zips and zaps and bangs and whooshes and little soundy things that will appear in the imaging, because I'm really not sure what I'm going to need specifically. But what I like to do is sit down and build a bunch of building blocks that will hopefully give me some of the sounds that I need to help me build that sound that's in my head. And so those little building blocks will be in the same sort of style that I'm working towards in terms of an overall sound for the station. Now, one of the projects that one of the programs that I found that I like to work with on this, and it's one that I'm using more and more, is Loopcloud. And Loopcloud is amazing in so many ways. It sort of talks directly to Pro Tools. It's got a bunch of sounds that are really easy to use and really easy to manipulate. Effectively, it's made more for sort of EDM musicians, so they can sort of download synth sounds and synth loops and drum sounds and drum loops and bass, blah 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 blah. You name it, it's pretty much there. And I do use it for that. In fact, in a future video, I'm hoping to be able to show you some sort of music work that I've done using stuff off here. But what I wanted to talk about today was this sound design stuff. And just to give you a quick overview, as you can see, I've started on one here. And as I said, this isn't complex stuff. This is just really simple building block sort of stuff. But what I was thinking about this afternoon when I started building all these was starters. So I'm thinking of those things that sort of, when the music stops or when we come out of the ad break or something, it's that sort of first sound that you hear that sets up that next piece of imaging. And so it has a bit of a thump to it. It's got a bit of a sound that's going to grab your attention. And again, it's not the final sound, as I mentioned, but it's sort of something that I can use then to build into that sound. So the first sort of thing that I sort of need is something that's got a bit of a thud to it, something that's going to sort of put a hard stop onto what's happened before. And so the easy thing about Loopcloud is I can just zip through the sound bank and I just found a kick drum that I really liked, which is this simple. And that's that one down here, by the way. And then the next thing that I found they do have an effects category in their library up here, which is what I was searching. And I found this sort of wubby, sort of synthy sound, which you can hear here. And you put those together and you get this. Now, that in itself is really handy as a building block, and I absolutely exported that straight away. That's gone to Pro Tools. But the other thing that's nice in Loopcloud is you have this edit function. If we click on here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of effects which are now added onto this wubby sort of sound here, and I had them muted while I was showing you that, but if we can turn them on one at a time and you can see what they're doing. So the first one is just a simple EQ, and that's basically rolling off everything that's sort of after sort of, those mid-rangey sort of sounds, getting rid of all the bottom end. And if I turn that on, you'll see what that's doing. So that's just made it a bit more sort of bit more cutty, a bit more high frequency sort of sounds, and something that's going to cut through a bit. And then what I've got in here next is it's called stretch, and it sort of it's like a pitch thing. It's like a pitch down, but it comes back up, so it's down and up, down and up, down and up, and you can sort of draw in, you can draw in what you want it to do over here in the timeline. But I sort of leave it pretty much straight, as you can see, but that sort of gives this sort of effect. If it wants to play for me, which it doesn't. There we go. So that sort of gives it this sort of effect like that. And then the next thing in the line is just a sort of tape stoppy sound effect, or Loopcloud's version of that. And then the last thing in the queue is just a compressor, just to do what compressors do most. Now, the beauty, as I was mentioning before about exporting all this stuff, is that probably took me 5 minutes just to muck around. And what you can do is you click on this export button that downloads everything. And then basically you drag this tab into Pro Tools, and I haven't got a second window open to show you, but if I drag that into Pro Tools, it gives me that affected file and this kick drum file as WAV files, but stems, so they're both separate, so then I can manipulate them some more later on, or if need be, if I'm sort of working on the imaging itself, I can actually just grab one of those two components if I'd rather just use that. The other thing I have done in the past, I haven't been doing today, but as I go through and add these effects in, I will export the version that I have already. So if I hadn't put on the compressor and the tape stop thing, I only had these two going, I would actually just drag that across into Pro Tools. So I've got a billion versions of this stuff just floating around, and sort of trying to get ahead of myself of sort of what I think I might need. So look, I mean, everyone has their own way of doing things. I find that really handy. I hope I've explained it in a way that sort of makes sense to you. But Loopcloud, if you haven't already got on there, it's definitely worth a look. I think the minimum subscription is like $7.95 US a month, which gives you about 300 odd downloads or 300 odd files that you can download for the months, and you can sort of top that up if you need to as well. So look, not a paid sponsorship in any way, shape or form, but just a really cool tool, and hopefully something that will be helpful to you if you're starting out on your radio imaging journey, or if you're sort of looking to try something new. So go get them, guys, and good luck with it all. Let me know how you go, and hopefully I'll see you again soon for another quick tip.